Welcome to the Ascent. We're so excited that you're with us this morning. And it's kind of crazy, but we are halfway through this series. It's a pretty long one, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope it's been beneficial. I hope it's been important to you. I know it's been really important for me and my family. As I got done praying with my wife, she prays for me every time I get ready to go speak somewhere, and her just kind of even using some of the phrases and the terminology of things that we've been walking through and talking about is just really cool to be able to see, like, this is something that maybe we hadn't been applying before, but we are now. And I just want to kind of use that as a reminder real quick of this isn't just a kind of a cool, catchy series that we're in, but what this is a series of just reminder of us needing to put in the effort. To make every effort to continue to grow in our relationship with Christ. Again, this series is the mask being able to be put on ourselves, to be able to take that breath. And I want us to continue to remember why we're doing that. Real quick, just who can say what our mission statement is? Just if you want to just yell it out, go ahead and do that. Can anyone tell me? Leading people in a growing relationship with Christ. And that's what our heartbeat is. That's what our design is, because that we never want to lose sight of what that is. We don't want to just come to church for church's sake. We want to be able to articulate that. I was talking to a friend of mine who's at a church, and they've got all these different changes that are happening at their church, and they're saying, they're like, well, I know some people are going to be upset about this, but we need to do this. And I asked him, I was like, what's your guys' mission statement? He's like, I couldn't tell you. I was like, you're on staff. You're like, how do you not know what your church's mission is? And I was like, if you don't know, your people don't know. And if you don't know what it is, then you'll never know, one, where you're going, and you'll never know if you've gotten there. And so we say it every single week, and we want you guys to be able to, and I think we've got it on a slide. If you want to put that slide up real quick. Our mission statement is to lead people in a growing relationship with Christ. And that's so important. And one of the things I wanted to tell them, I was like, hey, if you want to change what the lobby looks like, does it fit your mission? Does the lobby that you have right now in your church fit the mission of where you want to lead your people to? He says, no. I was like, well, can you help get your people along the lines of being able to know what your mission is so that you can say, hey, these are why we're doing some things? And the reason why we do things, the reason why we're in this series is because we think that the best approach for leading people in a growing relationship with Christ is to gather, grow, and to go. Right now, on Thursday nights, it's been really, really great. We've been able to gather together, and that's been amazing. That's been a lot of fun being able to be with each other on Sundays. This is a moment for us to be able to gather together, to be together as a body of believers. For Sunday Connect, we're having that right after. I hope you guys can jump in, hang out for a little bit. We'd love to just hang out, talk with you, get to know you a little bit better. But community is so important, and then you need to be able to grow. I was talking to somebody, and it was really cool. They were saying that, the thing I look forward to the most is Sunday morning and Thursday night. And they're like, the thing I looked forward to the most used to be my day off. And it's so nice now to be able to feel like I'm learning something, to feel like I'm growing. I've never done church like this before. And it's something that I'm so excited. She's like, and then what I do, I'm trying to get my teenage kids to come with me, but they won't. And so what I end up doing is when I get home, I do my homework, and then the next day, I walk my kids through it. And she's like, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, I was like, that's the point. That's what it is. I was like, what you're doing is you're gathering, you're together with people, you're making the most of opportunities that you can. Then you're growing, you're allowing people to pour into you, but then you're growing yourself, you're seeking after Jesus. You said that you go through the material things that we're doing, and then you're going and you're leading your kids. You're like, these kids are your disciples. She's like, that counts? I was like, yeah, that counts. I was like, your kids are your built-in disciples. That's absolutely what you should be doing. And so it's one of those things where we're saying, hey, it matters. What you do matters. And what Peter is saying, hey, this is so important. You have to make every effort. You have to make every effort to continue to grow in your relationship with Christ, because it's not just about you. And that's what I feel a lot of the times. That's what I want to tell my friend who's a pastor. He's like, yeah, everyone's going to be upset that we broke a vase in the lobby. And I'm like, that's not what it's about. I'm pretty sure someone didn't walk in and say, you know what, I'm rethinking my entire life. I'm giving my life to Jesus because of that vase. No one cares. It's being able to have the right mindset of, hey, I want to have an encounter with Jesus Christ. I want to grow in him. But then I want to go and I want to help other people grow too. That God's given you a unique ability to be able to pour into people. And we have a responsibility to pour into people. But it's hard, isn't it? Just real quick, this is something that as I was praying this week, I kept feeling this kind of overwhelming sense of burden, just kind of in this room or online. How many of you are tired? If you want to raise your hand, you can just be bold. How many of you had a really hard week this week? Yeah? How many people are still having a hard week this week? Yeah? How many of us know that we should do what we should do? But it's just kind of hard sometimes. Sometimes it's just so difficult to say, like, yeah, I know I need to make every effort, but it takes every effort just to get out of bed. It takes every effort for me to put my shoes on. It takes every effort of me to put a smile on my face. It puts every effort of me to make it to the next day. Can anybody relate to that in this room? Yeah. And it's hard, so what do we do with that? My prayer for you guys this week has been for us to kind of keep that on the forefront of our mind right now. To be able to think about the things that are tired, because there's moments where we think to ourselves, okay, is this worth it? And Peter's saying, hey, make every effort. These aren't just kind of a catchphrase, and he's not just kind of drawing things out of a hat to name them. He's specific in what he's saying and in the specific order in which he's telling us to make every effort. The first thing he says is make every effort to supplement your faith. Again, faith is this belief, this trust in God, that you are good, you are here, you are there, and you if you're here, you're going to be there, you're going to be with you were there yesterday, you're going to be here today, you're going to be there tomorrow. I have faith in this, and I have faith that you've called me into something greater. But then Peter moves on, he says, supplement your faith with virtue. Virtue, again, is holy living. Do you live in a way of which you have trust and faith in Jesus? Do you have this faith of being able to say, nope, I know without a shadow of a doubt that you've called me to do this, and I'm going to live set apart. That's moral living is what virtue is to be able, again, what he talks about in 1 Peter, when he talks that you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people of his own possession, that we are his. He's called us for a plan and purpose. And then you take that with knowledge, because you would say, okay, now I know who I am, but I need to be able to know who you are, Jesus. I need to be able to know. And what Jesus is saying, he says, you're mine, and I'm with you. And I've got you. There's nothing, there are going to be many moments where you are my sheep, and there will be moments when the wolves want to pluck you out of my hand, but God has given you to me. All authority are in my hands. Nothing will take you from me. There will be nothing that will separate you from me. Nothing. There is nothing that will stop me from loving you. You need to know that. It's this difference between a head knowledge and a heart knowledge. A head knowledge is this idea, this grasp, this concept of who Jesus is. This heart knowledge is this ability to be able to say, nope, with every part of me, I have faith that you are who you say you're going to be, and because of that, I'm going to live the way in which you've called me to live. And then this next part that we talked about last week is this knowledge with self-control. There's moments, again, where self-control, or you want to give in to your own desires. Like it takes effort for me to wake up in the morning to spend time with God. It's what I want to be able to do. There's nothing that I want to be able to do more, but it takes effort. So I had to start putting my phone on the other side of the room so that when I woke up, I got out of bed. And I had to set the coffee pot ahead of time, so I would make it the night before so that when I come downstairs, it is ready to go. And so the only excuse that I have is me, but self-control. I want to sleep sometimes. The other Sunday, last weekend, I preached 5 times that weekend, 3 at Bethel, 2 here, and I was so ready for a nap. I was so excited for a nap, and I went home and I ate my lunch, and Adam looked at me, he says, can we go to the big parking lot, which is to go ride bikes? I'm like, yeah, we can go do that. And then the next day was President's Day. I was like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm not going to do anything. So I went and put my hammock up, and that was really, really great outside. And then all of the neighborhood kids came and played right next to my hammock. And I was like, what in the world? And then so that next night I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my nap now. I'm going to sleep in. I'm not going to go work out. I'm going to sleep in right now, and I'm going to take my nap right now because I've earned it. I've earned a nap. And then I get a poke on my face from my son. Johnny says, hey, I peed the bed. I'm like, ugh. So then I had to go clean that. And so it's those moments where it's like, hey, everything is against you. Everything kind of just goes, and so you need to have that self-control to be able to say, like, I know what I want to do, but I know what I need to do, and so I'm gonna walk into what I need to do and have that self-control. And then today we're going to talk about combining self-control with steadfastness. And what is steadfastness? A commentary says that steadfastness is the capacity to hold out and to bear up in the face of difficulty. The capacity to hold up or to bear up in the face of difficulty. Following Jesus is hard. It is. It's so difficult to be able to do. The concept is very simple, but to actually live it out. You know, there's moments where people say, no, I'm fully with you, and Jesus is like, no, you're not. He says, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. And, you know, he's like, listen, foxes have holes, and I don't remember exactly what he said. Bunnies live in nests. I don't know what he says. But like he says, but hey, I don't have a place. Bunnies don't live in nests either. Those are birds. But like, and he's like, I have no home. I'm going to be, are you ready to compete with that? Are you ready to live with that? And this one guy's like, hey, let me follow you, but can I first go take care of some things at home? And Jesus says, no, you need to be able to lay it all down. It says, if you love me, you have to lose your life. But when you lose your life, you're going to find it. So many people walk through life trying to find their life, trying to find their way in things, and they end up losing it. But when Jesus says, nope, if you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. But what do you have to do to lose your life? You have to be able to say, these are the desires, these are the things I want to be able to do, but Jesus is saying these aren't good for you. These aren't the things that I know you think these are great, but they're gonna lead you down a road you shouldn't be in. So you need to make every effort to stand strong, but sometimes it takes all the effort in the world to stand strong. And so what do we do with that? There's 3 truths that I want to talk to you guys about applying steadfastness, this ability to stand strong to your faith. First, you need to be able to know that the truth is that you need to be able to know that you're going to face opposition of this world. You're going to face opposition in the flesh, but you'll make it. You will face opposition of the world. You will face opposition in the flesh. But if you remain steadfast, if you remain locked in with Him, you're going to make it. So let's talk about that. First point. You're going to have opposition of the world. Last week we talked about how the world hates you and how it does not want you to live. That's just the reality. There is an enemy in this world, and Paul talks about in Ephesians 6, where it's this enemy that we can't even see. That all around us, there's this battle, there's this war that's waging all around us, and we can't see it, but they're trying to take us down. Peter later on says that the enemy is like a roaring lion trying to find someone to devour, finding those moments to trip us up, to have us fall, and waiting to take us out. So all of the time, there's something that's trying to take us out because the world is inherently evil. And Jesus says in John 15, 18 through 19, says, if the world hates you, know that it hated me first. It hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own, but because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world will hate you. He says, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised that people hate you. One time I went to a Cardinals and Reds game. That's really important to know. I went to a Cardinals and Reds game. And so I wore a red baseball, like old school baseball shirt because I just wanted to blend in. My dad wore a Cubs sweater and a Cubs hat. I was like, Dad, they're not even playing. And I was like, it's in St. Louis. And he says, I don't care. And the entire day, I was praying that people didn't kill my dad. Like, I was like, 1, I need a ride home. But 2, also, it's my dad. Like, I want him to be okay. But it was one of those moments, and then Dad was like, man, these people are mean. I was like, what did you think was going to happen? And so there's those moments where we think to ourselves, I'm surprised that this world is so hard. Jesus says, don't be. Don't be surprised that there are going to be things that are going to try to take you out because the world hates you and wants you to be taken out. And this had to be so important for Peter to hear. So Jesus is telling Peter this. He says, hey, the world's going to hate you. Because of what I came to do, because of what I'm saying, the world's going to hate you and wants you to fail. Peter needed to hear that because Peter then writes in 1 Peter chapter 4, he says this, he says, "Beloved, do not be surprised when the fiery trials, don't be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you." And this was big because Peter, in 1 Peter, he was writing to this church who was experiencing or was getting ready to experience heavy persecution. This guy named Nero, he was in charge of everything, and he hated Christians with a passion. In fact, he's the one who took out Peter and Paul. Under his reign, he killed Peter, hung Peter upside down on a cross, and killed Paul as well. But when he says these fiery trials, this is kind of gross, but this is an actual fiery trial, because what he would do is he would take Christians and he would put them in these big lantern type things and catch them on fire, and they would be the fuel to light the sidewalk. That's what he would do with Christians. Dude was nuts. And so what Peter is saying, hey, stay strong. Know that they hate you. Don't be surprised when people don't want to hear what you have to say. Don't be surprised by any of this stuff, because the world will hate you, because Jesus came to take you out of it, and the world wants to take you down. This lady I was talking about who was doing the Bible study, I've known her for years, and the enemy has had a stranglehold on her for so much of her life. And I'm telling her, I was like, you don't be surprised if there's opposition that's trying to stop you from coming to things. Don't be surprised when those moments when you're like, oh, I don't necessarily want to do it, but know that that's the time you need to be able to do it. The enemy has had such an influence over your life, and he's mad that he's losing you. And so Peter is saying, hey, stay strong. Now for us, it's... Oh, here, I'll read this part. In 13 it says, "But rejoice insofar as to share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad in the glory that is revealed. If you are insulted in the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of the glory of God rests upon you." And so Peter is saying, hey, we get to partake in the suffering of Christ. And Paul talks about that a ton. In Romans 8, he says that, hey, you've been adopted into this family, but you're going to suffer. You're going to experience persecution. Now in the United States, we don't really experience a ton of persecution. I was talking to a guy who was a missionary in China during kind of the lockdown, and he was stuck in the United States, and I was like, are you Zooming with your churches? You've planted several churches in China. He's like, we can't, because China has the rights to be able to pop into any Zoom call. Any Zoom call that we start, if they get in and they see that we're doing church, they'll go right over and they'll arrest them. Like that's persecution. We were bummed that we had to stay home for a couple months. And so in the United States, we're not going to experience really persecution, but what we're going to experience hostility. We're going to experience people who just don't understand it, who just don't get it. And there's going to be those moments when we're faced with this opposition that we need to be able to stand firm. Now, I'm not saying like push Jesus down people's throats, but we need to stand firm for what it is that we believe in, so that in those moments when they see us, they can see that there's something different about us. They can see that there's something different about who we are. And so to be able to know that there's going to be opposition of this world, the world's going to do everything it can to try to take you down. But to stand strong knowing that we share in the sufferings of Christ, that Christ paid the ultimate price for us. And if he did all that, then we can sacrifice ourselves as well. And to be able to say, you know what, I'm doing this, but I also know that in this moments that feels hard, feels difficult, feels like pain, I can turn to Jesus, who knows exactly what that feels like. Because it's a God who's not distant, it's a God who went through this not only for me, but he's with me in this. And so the other thing is there's going to be opposition in the flesh. Like I was talking about, sometimes it's really hard to follow Christ. And you think to yourselves, what's the point? You guys ever been there? You ever just think to yourself, no one's listening. No one gets it. Why should I put so much time and energy leading people to Christ? I remember when I was in youth ministry, we got a tip. This was at Northwoods. we got a tip that somebody was going to fight the other person. Like, this guy was really mad at this guy. And so me and the volunteers, we got together in the little green room, and we're just looking at all of them. I was like, all right, guys. So I found out that he wants to fight him, and so we need to keep him away from him and him away from him. But this guy who's walking in, he looks like he's really, really mad. It might be, yep, it's this guy. He's the one. And then he walks in, and he decks the dude in the face, sitting at a table full of girls, and we're like, ah! And so we run out, and so we grab him, like again, little arms just rip this guy off and with his backpack, and just so much energy is coming through, and I start pulling him down, and the other guys grab him, and I was like, you need to go. We called the police came, and we had to like call his parents and have to handle all of this stuff, and I went up to him, I was like, listen, you can't come back. You can't come back here until you and me have met regularly. And I can say that it's okay, but listen, I want you to be here, but you cannot do this here. And so you on Thursday night or Thursday after school, you and me are going to start meeting every week. And so then Thursdays he started coming, and we sat down, we started reading the Bible together, and we started like kind of like just asking a lot of questions. I found out that there was a lot of father wounds with him, and he was like, you know what, I've got a lot of friends who are kind of struggling with this as well. Can they start coming to this? I'm like, absolutely. And so then we started having like all these other kids start coming. We play basketball for a little bit, and then we sit down and we start having a conversation, and then things were going really, really good. He had a Bible, he was praying, we were going through the scriptures together, and then one Sunday he got baptized. We had the big horse troughs. You guys remember that back at Northwoods? And so like I got to baptize him, and I was like, this is it. This is why we do it. You know, like, this is amazing. And then that night, got on Facebook, like you do, and so then I got on Facebook, and then I was like, I just want to see, like, maybe he posted like something about getting baptized or whatever, and the first thing I see on his page, the most recent thing that just happened a couple hours, he was at Kiwanis Park, and he throws his back down, and then he starts beating somebody up. And so then I mean, like, hardcore, and like just a circle of people just recording him beat up this kid. And so I respond, dude. And then he private messages me. He's like, nope, you don't even understand. I was like, no. I was like, what did we just do today? I was like, what? I was like, God, we did all the things. Like, I was like, we did all the things that we're supposed to do. Why? Like, Disney was going to make a movie about him and everything. That was just like, what happened? And then there's moments where I would sit in my office, and I remember there was a guy that he was a mentor of mine for years. He started coming in, and was just struggling with a lot of stuff. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, if he's struggling with these things, who has any chance in life? And then he stopped coming to church, and so then I was like, what's the point? I remember thinking to God, I was like, God, why am I putting all this energy into this? People suck. Like, I was like, why would I waste all of this time if they're just going to continue to not listen to anything I have to say? Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Like, what's the point? Is this worth it? And Jesus says, yes, that is the point. This world is crazy. And people are so far away from me. People who you think have been so close to me, I haven't talked to them in years. So yeah, we just keep pushing along. We keep fighting. Because the enemy's not giving up. The enemy's not going to stop. The enemy is going to continue fighting as well. And the enemy is doing a great job pulling people away. It says the point is that people are far from me. And you know me, so keep leading them to me. But everything in the flesh just says, no, I don't want to give up. I don't want to put in the time. I don't want to put in the energy. I don't want to put in the resources. I don't want to. It's when the temptation of doing nothing falls back into play. But having that self-control to be able to say, no, I know what Christ has done for me. And if I have faith and trust in his promises, then that's the next thing. It says that we'll make it. Because Jesus says that we will. In Romans chapter 5, it says, "Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ." Because of what Jesus did on the cross, we've been justified, and we can experience this peace. The majority of you rose your hands, talked about how tired you are this week, how hard this week has been, for whatever reason that might be. What Jesus is saying, he's saying, hey, you want to fall down, stand back up. Stay strong and experience my peace. I laid my life down so that you can stand. And I'm not telling you to stand, I'm saying, hey, let my peace prop you up. Stand in my peace. Stand here. I've already paid the price for you. Experience my peace. Some of us in this room need to experience his peace. Need to experience his love. And then he says, through him we have also obtained access by faith into this grace with which we stand. And we rejoice in the hope and the glory of God. This faith is what Paul is resembling to the faith that Abraham had. So think about the faith that Abraham had. That God, I don't understand what's going on. I don't know where we're going, why we're doing this, but I trust you, and I'm going to go. Does it make sense? My family doesn't make sense to my family. I'm leaving that. I'm coming to where you're telling me to go. I'm doing what you're telling me to do because I trust in you, not in anything else. So I trust you. And it says, the grace in which you stand. Are you standing in his grace? Is his grace the foundation of which you stand? Some of us can't stand or don't have the capacity to stand because we're standing in our guilt. And we're standing in our shame. We're standing in the frustrations. We're standing in the things that are trying to knock us down. When he's saying, nope, stand with me. Stand in my grace. Think about the second chance that I've given you. Stand in my love. And this love will give you the ability to have, and that's what he says next. He says, not only will you rejoice in your sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Again, this rejoicing. Jesus is saying, hey, I'm not saying like, yay, something bad happened to me. I've talked about this before. I won't go into crazy detail now, but when me and Sarah, we lost a child 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember just how hard that felt, but there was a nurse that was in the room with us, and she came up and she said, hey, this stings. And you'll never look back on this moment and be happy about it, but you can look back on this moment with joy. You can experience my joy, or Jesus' joy. And he will remove the sting out of this memory like you remove the sting out of sin and death. Now, me and Sarah, we don't look back on that and be like, you know what? We're glad that happened. But what I am appreciative of and what I am glad for is experiencing the joy of a God who knows my suffering. The joy of knowing a God who knows my pain. Who said, hey, I'm with you. And it's in these sufferings when you can grow closer to Jesus. It's in these sufferings when you rely more on him because you don't have enough. You don't have enough to be able to do it yourself, and so you have to be able to lean into him. And you can rejoice in your sufferings knowing that you have a God who is not distant, who is not far off, but he's with you in this, and he knows what your pain feels like. So lean in instead of pull away. Everything within us, in the flesh, we want to pull away. But what Jesus is saying, nope, lean in and experience my peace. It says endurance, which is steadfastness, produces character, and character produces hope. This character is us being able to look more and more like him because we're connected to him. When the passage when Jesus says the world's going to hate you, the passage right above that is saying, hey, stay close to me. Remain in me. That if you remain in me, you're going to grow and you're going to bear fruit. And so stay close to me and that you will experience my joy. I tell you these things because I want you to experience joy. So stay close to him, and that produces our character because our mind and his mind are linked, and we're close, and we're living not for ourselves, not for the world, but we're living for him, and to be able to give that hope. And then it ends the section, it says, for while you were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. How many of you feel weak right now? Yeah, you can be bold if you want to raise your hand. How many of you feel weak? How many of you are weighed down by the pressures of this world? How many of you are weighed down by the decisions of which you have to make, or weighed down by the decisions that you have made and you feel regret with it? So what Jesus is saying, he's saying, hey, you're weak, but I am strong. So you can stand when you feel weak, knowing that my love and my grace and my mercy are there to prop you up. Because at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly, for one will sacrifice, or surely one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps a good person might dare even to die. But God shows his love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's something of which we can stand. That's something of which we can remain strong with, because we realize it's not our strength, but it's his. We have the ability to lead many people to Jesus. You have the ability to lead people to Christ. The world wants you to not. The weight of this world wants you to not. And so right now, as we just come before God, let's go ahead and close our eyes. And let's offer up the thing that's making us weak. Let's offer up the burden that is so heavy, and to be able to feel that release of when Jesus says, come to me all who are weak and weary, and I will give you rest. Some of you can't stand up because you're so tired, because you haven't experienced his rest. So right now, Jesus, we just pray that we're able to experience your rest. We long for your rest. We long to be close to you. Father, I pray that we're able to lay these burdens down. I pray, God, that we're able to give them over to you, that the decisions, the choices, the weariness of being a Christ follower in today's age, those moments when we want to give up, those moments when we want to turn around, help us to keep our feet firmly planted on the ground, to stand in your grace, your love, in your mercy, to know that you went through it all so that we would have the ability to stand, to be with you for eternity. Give us the strength to endure, because we can't do it ourselves. We love you. We praise you. And we pray this in your precious and holy name. God's people said, amen.